By now, you've probably heard my magic wand story. It's a brand that's been part of my personal journey for more than 20 years. But no matter how many times I sing Magic Wand's praises, I'll never be able to fully capture the story of this incredible brand. Well, now journalist and author Kate Sloan just completed a limited audio series documenting the history and impact that Magic Wand has created over the last 56 years. It's called Making Magic. And the series chronicles Magic Wand's incredible brand story through interviews with nearly 40 experts, performers, business owners, educators, and fans. So I got a sneak preview of this series, and what I loved is that Kate weaves together snippets from all their interviews into this amazing story arc. She covers Magic Wand's journey from appliance store massager to its legendary influence on culture and sexual independence, and it's all just fascinating. The first episodes of Making Magic are available now at makingmagicseries.com or on all popular podcast platforms. Just search for Making Magic or visit makingmagicseries.com today.
One of the main things I always say is make a list of maybe like 5 things you've always wanted to learn. And I don't care what it is. Like, I want to learn how to dance salsa and cook Italian food and go skydiving, and then maybe I'll take like golf lessons. Write those things down. Find classes in your area or clubs in your area that do that and do those. And it's not just like join a club, like that's lame advice. But if you take classes, the worst thing that happens at the end of the class, even if you don't meet any people of the same sex or the opposite sex, is you just learned a skill.
You're listening to Sex with Emily. I'm Dr. Emily, and I'm here to help you prioritize your pleasure and liberate the conversation around sex. When it comes to relationships across the board, from sex to work to friendships, do you actually know what impression you're having on others, especially when you first meet someone? In this best of show, I'm throwing it back to my conversation with my friend and fellow podcaster, Jordan Harbinger, who gets real on social behaviors and the power of body language. Jordan and I talk about the difference between authenticity and hustling, confidence while dating, and the shocking power of nonverbal communication. He coaches us on developing open, positive body postures and helps us all walk into a room with charisma and curiosity. Intentions with Emily. For each episode, I want to start off by setting an intention for the show. I do it. I encourage you to do the same. So when you're listening, what do you want to get out of the episode? Well, my intention is to help you gain new perspective on social networks, influence, and authenticity with my funny, insightful friend, Jordan. Please rate and review Sex with Emily wherever you listen to the show. My new article, Ask Emily, How Do I Tell My Partner I've Been Faking Orgasms, is up at sexwithemily.com. Also, check out my YouTube channel for more sex tips and advice. If you want to ask me a question, leave me your questions or message me at sexwithemily.com/assemily, or just call my hotline, 559-TALK-SEX, or 559-825-5739. Always include your name, your age, where you live, and how you listen to the show. And you can change your name, no problem, or choose to remain anonymous. All right, everyone, enjoy this episode. Jordan Harbinger is an attorney turned podcaster who showed the Jordan Harbinger Show was listed by Apple as one of the most downloaded new shows of 2018. As a student of social dynamics, he unpacks guest wisdom into practical nuggets you can use to impact your work, your life, and your relationships. He is a recurring guest on The Adam Carolla Show, a regular contributor to Newsweek, and the former host of the top-rated lifestyle and self-improvement show, The Art of Charm podcast. Find more Jordan at jordanharbinger.com or on Twitter and Instagram at Jordan Harbinger. And check out his podcast, The Jordan Harbinger Show. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all that this podcast episode is a best of and was originally recorded in 2019. So some aspects of the show may be a bit dated, including references to gender. I started using penis and vulva owners around 2020. So congratulations on the success of your podcast.
Thank you.
Your latest podcast, a year.
Doing it. Not even a year.
Not even a year. And I'm looking this year. You were on a year ago. You guys can check out that past podcast, and you've been on a few times. But you launched this new show, and then I'm looking the other day, it's like top 100 podcasts of the year, and all these amazing guests you've had on, except for me.
Yeah, not yet. TBD on that. TBA.
Dude, what
coming
the
soon.
F? So, but I realized there was a lot of dudes on your show.
There are a lot of dudes.
So that's cool. And essentially you talk to a lot of successful people. Success, however you define it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the people are less traditionally successful. I mean, there was one guy who I interviewed recently who was imprisoned falsely in Pakistan for 3 years, and he was a stuntman from Hollywood. And so they're like, in Pakistan, when you go to prison, they beat you up to try to get a confession out of you. This is like court ordered. It's not just like corrupt, whatever. It's just a court ordered. And since he's a stuntman, he could hold his breath for 3 minutes, and he can he knows martial arts. So these cops are trying to dunk him in water, and he's like, whatever, I can hold my breath for 3 minutes. So they're trying to waterboard him for like a minute at a time, and he's like, this is easy. And they're like smacking him around. They're trying to have other prisoners beat him up, and he's like, drop kicking people. And so he's in prison for 3 years, and he ends up making friends with these hijackers who teach him how to play Texas Hold'em poker. Now he's a professional poker player. So that, I wouldn't say he's like a model of capitalist success.
Right. But you actually interview people that you admire, however they've succeeded in the world, and kind of learn from them.
Yeah.
What they do,
totally.
What they've learned, what they've done. So how do you find your guests?
Yeah.
How do you define success?
The show fans, they come up and they go, you've got to talk to this guy, so interesting. Or I'll find somebody and I'll read a book and I'll be like, this is a really good show in the making. And I'll reach out to some neuroscientist and they're like, yeah, I never really do media. And I'm like, look, I want to hear about how the brain tricks our eyes into thinking we see stuff that's not there. And they'll do it. And they're not used to it because, most scientists and stuff like that are used to doing like a 10-minute piece on some AM radio station and then done. And I'm like, I want an hour.
Last time you were on the show, and you've been on a few times, we talked about establishing relationships, like through networking. And that's kind of what you talk about is business skills. You'll interview people, right, in different areas of success. But also, how do you maintain relationships, whether they're romantic or otherwise? How do you keep friendships?
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot around here, too, because when you get really busy with work, it can be hard. And for me, even moving to a new city 6 years ago, formative years in San Francisco, how do you do that? How do you maintain them? And why is that important?
Yeah. So these are questions that I struggled with for such a long time. Because when I was younger, I thought like, networking is something that you do when you're older. You work your way up to the top of the corporate ladder. I used to be a Wall Street attorney. So it was like, then you get made partner at this law firm. And then like, I don't know, you join a country club, ... network. Totally not how this works, right? Actually, the most successful people that I've talked to that I meet, they do this networking stuff beforehand. Here's something else. Like everyone thinks they're really good natural networkers and they're not. They're like better than the people that they know that are not good at it. Right. So they're like, I do a lot of this stuff naturally. But some of the stuff that I teach when I teach networking and relationship development skills, we'll teach it to like high-level entrepreneurs, military, special forces, intelligence agents, and stuff like that. Like people whose lives are on the line for networking, and they're like, wow, this is really good. They're furiously taking notes. And then I'll go to like a college and teach it, and the kids are all like, I naturally do most of this, so... And I'm like, yeah, right.
Right.
I'm sure it's like some of the stuff that you're talking about. You're like, oh, no, I'm really good at that. And you're like, you're so not.
No, right. And I remember this from last time because you did say something about, and this is going to be a little bit different, but following up, like going on through your text and being like, I haven't talked to this person in a month, or 2 months, 6 months. So when I heard from you like 6 months ago or 3 months, I was like, I'm probably at the bottom of his text.
I'm at the bottom. Yeah. So
but I know you love me anyway. It probably just came up. You were thinking about me.
So the system,
it's a good system.
It is a good system. So that's one of my favorite techniques, the one you just mentioned. So what it is like you go into your phone, click on the text message thing, scroll all the way to the bottom. Those are the people that you had lunch with like 3 years ago, never talked to again. And you're like, oh yeah, I did a crap job following up. You re-engage like 4 or 5 of those people per day. And you just say something like, hey, what's the latest with you? It's Emily. I haven't spoken to you in a long time. We met at in San Diego at Cafe Gratitude, and I did a crap job keeping in touch. I want to fix that. What's going on with you? I'd love to, be of service somehow. And I'll just send a bunch of those every day, and like 70% of the people will respond.
Okay.
And the other ones won't, and like whatever, who cares? It's on them. And so people get busy. It's like not a big deal. But then you re-engage these people, and then sometimes people are like, oh my God, it's so funny. I was just talking about you with someone the other week, and I couldn't remember where we met. I'm doing a speaking event for this company. I sell laptop screens, and we need someone to come in. Do you do speaking? And you'll find these random opportunities. So when I re-engage people that I'm actually friends with, though, like you, that I've kept in touch with, usually something reminds me of that person. And so instead of going like, oh yeah, I remember I went to that sushi place with Emily Morse once, and then not do anything, I'm like, oh, I've tried to develop the habit of whipping out my phone right away and being like, in the moment, because Jen does all the driving. So I'm like in the passenger seat and I'll be like, oh, and I'll check what time zone I'm in, because if it's like Hawaii and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning where you are, I'm not going to do it. But I'll be like, hey, what's going on? And I don't say like, I just passed the sushi restaurant and your office and didn't call you. I'll just be like, hey, what are you up to? It's been a minute. And I don't worry about the amount of time that's gone by. And I think these little habits are really the difference between somebody who can keep 1,000 relationships going or 200 or whatever.
I feel like I did a lot of networking early on. I always had all the business cards and the file. I mean, that now, thank God, business cards are gone because those were kind of stressful.
Super, right? You have a stack you have to email everyone?
500,000. I went to therapy about it. She was like, just burn them. I was moving to LA. I'm like, I have so many friggin', because they were stressing me out. How do you follow through? How do you do all the things?
Yeah. I mean, you could scan them and a CRM would email them automatically.
I finally had someone scan them. I did not burn them. So it is an important skill. And even if you're dating, you're meeting new friends, if you're like just keeping up with people, this is what stops me from it. I'm like, okay, so I'll text those 4 people because I think about this, but I'm like, I always feel like the end thing's going to be like, let's grab lunch, let's grab dinner.
People are afraid of that. Yeah.
I don't want to make plans with everybody.
Amen.
I want to go home.
No, I hear you.
I want to have dinner with everybody.
We have dinner plans tonight, though.
Well, yo, you're someone I want to have dinner with.
Okay.
Like,
are you sure?
No, okay. Jordan, I asked you. Because
That's
I'm like,
true.
My time is so valuable that I feel like I used to just be like, yeah, let's get drinks.
Even if you do say so yourself, right? Like, my time is so valuable.
It is. I just don't want to hang out with people who's...
No, I hear you though. No, you're right. Here's the fear. This is an unfounded. Look, I get it. It's an unfounded fear, though.
You should actually feel good that I'm choosing to have dinner.
I do, because your time is so valuable.
It sounds so shitty, but like, I couldn't do a great show if I was out every single night.
You can't. No, it's true. Here's the thing. People go, I don't want to have coffee with all these people. Let me just reassure you. Most people don't want to do that either. Here's how the texting re-engage drill that we just talked about. I'll send those texts. 70% of the people respond, 30% don't. Of those 70, I'll be like, hey, what are you up to? And they're like, yeah, I moved to Albuquerque with my wife and I got 2 dogs and I'm training dogs now. And I'm like, wow, that's so random. Do you ever get up to San Jose, LA? Like, do you travel? No, I had kids and I just sit at home with the kids and the dogs. I'm like, that's really cool. Well, let me know if I can help with anything. They're like, yeah, same to you, man. Are you still doing your podcast? Yeah. I'll have to check it out sometime. The end.
Right.
Most people are not like, let's get coffee. And
they are.
But well, that's because your time is so valuable and in demand. But if they say that, you'll be like, hey, I'm always traveling around and doing, I'm always slammed, but I just wanted to touch base. You don't have to be like, no, I'd rather not get coffee. And you also don't have to be like, crap, now I have to say yes.
See, this is what I'm saying. So, but that's a good tactic.
Yeah,
sometimes I just don't do it.
Because you're afraid that they're going to be like, let's meet up. When people say, let's meet up, I'm often like,
why?
If I'm ever in your area and we're doing something, I will give you a buzz.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, if I go to Austin, Texas, all these people, I will invite like 14 people to dinner and none of them will want to go. And the 4 people that show up, I'm like, great. And I'll catch up with them. Then those people who are like, hey, let's get coffee. I'm like, hey, I was in your neighborhood like a year ago and you didn't come.
That's really smart to actually group them and be like, or sometimes I do that here too. I'll have with my friends, I'll say, yeah, why don't I be effective and then have them all like together. Like here, these 5 people are all similar or they're all in my industry and let's all meet up for coffee.
Yeah.
So what about in dating? I want to talk to you about this because when you're on the apps, right? Most people, a lot of people are dating on the apps now, or they're meeting new people in relationships. And I do believe that it's a great, if you're looking to meet someone, that it's good to date several people at once. I think that's important and effective.
I agree with you.
Don't just hook up with the first person. This was great sex, and then for a year goes by and you realize that that's not the right person for me.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that, what happened to me, I did get a little overwhelmed. I might be jumping back into that again.
You got overwhelmed? I can't even imagine what that's like. Yeah, I think this is what I love about you. You're super efficient, but then that efficiency also makes you be like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If I know one thing about you, it's probably going to be something like that.
How did it happen? But how do you figure that out? How do you manage it? Like in new relationships or dating even? How do you like get into that management of...
The thing with me for dating back in the day was... And I know this sounds super obvious. That is so could not be further from the truth.
People how to be ladies' man?
Yes.
Okay.
Those who can't do teach, right? Isn't that what they say?
Well, exactly.
So that's what I was doing.
Don't ask me about my sex life.
Yeah. It's God, I'm not even gonna go there. So
you can do it. Oh, you're gonna bring up that terrible guy I dated.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
Okay.
Not on your show. That would just be mean. So one thing that I found was really fun for me was just being really honest. And my brother-in-law is really good at this. Women are always trying to lock down my brother-in-law all the time. And they'll like jump through crazy gymnastic hoops to be like, I'm going to make him jealous. His name's Glenn. They'll be like, I'm going to make him jealous. I'm going to talk about this. And it sort of works. But then me and Jen, my wife, are always like, she's doing this to make you jealous. She's doing this so that you do that. She's doing that. So it's really fun to outline this and highlight it. But what's really working well for him that you can't fight is the honesty factor. He'll be like, yeah, I'm dating a lot of women right now. And women who are cool and are willing to like sort of take it slow at a normal pace, they're like, okay, understandable. And the ones that are a little like too demanding, they're like, well, you have to choose me now. And if you don't choose me now after like real talk, like 2 dates, then I'm not going to move from this other part of the country to where you, and I'm like, good, let them go. Those are people who are going to like control your life.
Right. I think that's a really good point because I think in dating, we do this a lot. We go into it wanting everyone to like us and to convince them all that we're the one. And we're not even sure that we want to be with this person.
Exactly.
So it's so important to weed them out. Like if someone's doing something making you feel bad or putting all these demands on you or that just don't match up with your bottom line issues or what you're looking for. Like,
yeah, we're all
early on
because we're all trying to be liked. Yeah, good point.
Yes.
On that note, we're all trying to be liked. I'm sure this happens to you. I remember when I was dating, I would go out with somebody that I didn't like at all, and I would be like, "Wait, they don't like me? This is bullshit."
Yeah.
And like I went out with this matchmaker who hooked me up with a couple of her clients once, and she's like, look, these clients want refunds. Can you go out with them? Because I'm introducing them to these guys and nothing's clicking and I think they'll like you. And I would go out on dates with them and they'd be like, yeah, they liked you. And I'm like, oh shoot, I don't really want to go out with them again. And they're like, oh, okay. And then one person would be like, yeah, she doesn't want a second date. And I would be like, wait, what? Why? Meanwhile, I just got done complaining about how crappy this date was for like an hour to my roommate.
It's our ego. Like, how dare you don't want me when I definitely don't want you? But that does not feel good.
Right. Like, no, you're supposed to like me and I'm supposed to reject you.
Right.
Not mutual rejection, not the other way around. And then you realize how dumb that is.
Exactly. It's true. We all do that. But I think it's really important to look at it and be like, okay, yeah, I don't want this person anyway. So lay it out early on what you're looking for in a partner and let him know, like, your brother-in-law, is he single? Where does he live?
He's single. He lives in San Jose, California, Saratoga, to be exact.
But I like him. No,
He's great. He is really fun. He's athletic, good-looking guy. He's smart. He's really good at designing things, and he's got a decent job.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so but in dating, because I know that with finding people, managing them, being honest early on, managing them. What am I saying? Managing people you're dating, but that is something for me that just, I guess it is just a matter of. Hold on, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Okay, what else do we want to?
So on that thread, I'm done. I envy the fact that you can.
I can do what?
That you can just stop yourself in the middle of a sentence and be like, you know what?
Well, they don't get happy when I do it because sometimes they're like, that was really good, and then we can't edit it because you stopped your sentence.
No, you can edit it. Just like leave it in. I wish there are so many times on my show where I'm like, you know what? That was a dumb thought. I'm done. And then my producer's like, well, I'll cut around it. I'm like, nah, just leave it in. Like, I'm allowed to have a half thought, right?
Yeah.
No,
that's true. We leave all this shit in here. I am so myself after all this friggin' time.
Yeah.
But let's
14 years.
14 friggin' years. Well, let's talk about that because how do you, like, being authentic and sharing who you really are and sharing your vulnerabilities and your truths is like it's kind of a buzzword self-helpy thing today.
I know, yeah.
But all the businesses and all the people are like, now it's not just, what do they call them, thirst traps on Instagram? But they'll be like,
what's that? What's a thirst trap?
You know, a woman in a super sexy photo, and then she'll be like, I used to be really insecure. I had abuse growing up, or I had trauma. Like, it's still a sexy photo, but everyone's talking about their vulnerabilities and being authentic and being truthful. But it's not necessarily with a thirst trap. I'm saying in general, that was just a separate thought.
Why is it called a thirst trap?
Because it's like, for a lot of times, like, there's no other reason for this person or guy, man or woman, to post this super sexy photo of them except to get a lot of likes, which...
Okay. Yeah, you know what's funny? I just saw something like this the other day, and I was talking about it with a bunch of my friends where somebody I know had like a kind of a traumatic breakup, and she announced it in a photo of her like getting out of a pool, and it's like her wearing a swimsuit, and it's like her butt is the photo, getting out her wet butt. And people are posting like, so you're sort of dealing with this breakup by posting your wet ass on Instagram.
That's not a bad strategy.
And I'm just like... Yeah, good point. Like, and she's like, I see strength in and I totally see her side, but I also see the other side of like, how much of this is like attention? Because I feel like if you're sharing something really vulnerable, it's like you laying on the couch looking at the camera directly, not, I just worked out. Here's my six pack.
You're like, yeah. Right, exactly. Like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm sharing. But don't you think that is a thing right now about probably things that you talk about on your show is like, how do people relate to people that you're meeting? You have to be your most authentic self. So how do you show up, whether you're on a date or in a meeting, be making good first impressions, or walking in the room? Like what?
Well, the
I know
authenticity.
You talk a lot about relationships.
I do. I like the authenticity topic because it is tricky, right? Because there's people on Instagram who are like, I'm just going to be authentic. And then it reminds me of the beginning. Have you seen that movie Jumanji? Have you seen that? You haven't?
Dude, I missed out on like 30.
It's recent. Not the Robin Williams one. I haven't even seen that one.
I'm busy.
There's a girl in the beginning. She's taking a photo.
My time's precious.
And she's like, I know, your time is very valuable. And she's taking a selfie, and she like corrects this other thing, corrects this lighting, corrects her hair, and then takes a photo. And then the caption is like, just rolled out of bed or something like that. It takes like the whole first 5 minutes of the movie is her trying to stage this photo. So the authenticity thing is weird because people are trying to claim and look as authentic as possible, but they're really not. It's kind of like a, when I'm trying to draw an analogy here. Let's see if I screw this up. When the bullfighter, the matador, has the red cape and he waves it in front of the bull and the bull charges it and then he moves out of the way. Yeah. I feel like that's what the authenticity thing is, where it's like, I'm being so authentic with the red cape over here and like, look, I'm authentic. But really it's like, oh, just kidding. I'm not. I'm wearing full makeup. There's lighting. 6 people took this photo shoot. It took 5 hours. We have 30 retouched photos of this authentic moment where I'm supposedly eating like strawberries in cereal, except for it's a piece of plastic because it wouldn't have lasted that long in the milk.
Totally.
Right.
And please buy my whatever I'm selling.
Oh, and also hashtag Listerine or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Ad. How do you so in all these people you've interviewed then in the last, you've interviewed tons of leaders, successful people all over in all different walks of life. So, that's a lot. And you're doing a few podcasts a week, right?
3. Yeah.
Dude, that's so impressive.
My Friday show is me answering listener questions.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that's kind of like your bag, right?
Yeah.
We're
that's what I do.
When you come on my show, we're going to do one of those.
Yeah.
Because I get these questions that are like, I'm having Emily answer this.
Yeah, dude. I'll come on and do it. So is there any commonalities that you've noticed through here? Like, God, it seems like everyone is, for example, meditating or...
Oh my God, I know. Do you meditate? You should. Because let me tell you, it's life-changing. No, I'm just kidding. I do not. I don't do it.
And then tell me to like color code my folders and I should get a little maker and write everything down. People try to calm me down. They're like, maybe you should make a list.
Yeah, let's get Marie Kondo in here. We'll get Marie Kondo in here for you.
I'm obsessed. I binged on it last night. But all the people that you're interviewing, is there anything you're like, oh, wow, that's actually shaped you? Talking to 3 people a week, and editing and the whole thing.
All the time.
You've been in it for a year.
The new show.
Years of interviewing
12
people.
years of interviews.
12 years of interviews, but the Jordan Harbinger, you're the guy.
Yeah.
You're reading the books. You're doing the prep.
That's the thing. I do spend like 10 hours prepping each interview. And so I'll read the whole book. I remember like when I interviewed Mike Rowe, who you probably know from San Francisco, I was trying to find friends of his that he went to college with and like ask Mike Rowe stories that haven't been on shows before. Like I really dig and it like up to the line of creepy to try to figure out what makes that person tick. And so of course those people, their characteristics, their traits, they do rub off. So you kind of have to be careful because if you interview a couple years ago, I went down this road where I was like, let me interview all these like influencers and these marketer people. And those people are kind of skeevy, a lot of them. Yeah. Not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of gross. And so I found myself getting into a mode where I was like, oh, I'll just exaggerate that and like do that. And it was totally because I was immersed in the world of like internet fake BS. And now I'm well away from that. And it makes you happier. It's just like if you use Instagram too much, you're like, oh, it's okay to like Photoshop this out. Let me do a filter where I look like I don't have a zit or like I'm thinner or whatever. It's dishonest, but when you're surrounding yourself with a certain quality or caliber of person, the mores or morals or whatever of that group can really rub off on you. And I think this business guy, Jim Rohn, who's since passed away, said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After word from our sponsors, Jordan shares how your network influences your life. Do you think at this point in life that you pretty much are Jordan Harbinger and there isn't that much of an impact? Or have you learned a lot?
It's funny you should ask. A few years ago, I was like, I'm done. I know who I am. None of this stuff is going to affect me. And now I've come to this conscious level where I'm like, oh yeah, all this stuff affects me. You've got to be really careful. And so one of my personal mottos, I guess you would say, or slogans is protect your mind. And what I mean by that is you can't hang out with like dirty people who smoke and like wake up late and play video games all the time and be like, this isn't going to influence me. It does.
So glad I broke up with my ex.
Right?
That's what he did.
Yeah. They're glad too, I'm sure. They're like, oh my God, she's turning into...
No, but dude, he did that. He was... Wait, you know what you're saying? If they're not doing the same things, they're not up before 11.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't avoid that. And there are all these studies that show that... you probably read this, actually. I'm going to try to remember what this is. There was some study or set of studies that shows that if you, let's say, so you and I are friends, let's say that you're friends with Jamie, and let's say that Jamie has a bunch of, like 5 friends that eat chicken wings every night and pizza, and they're like overweight.
She does, and I've been telling her not to hang out. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
And so there are studies that show that second and third order friends, so like me and you, friends with her, we will also gain an average bit of weight by being, even though we don't know those people. So let's say Jamie has some, let's just be unkind and say like overweight friends, okay? Right. And then you and I will, secondary, tertiary, whatever it's called, we will suffer consequences of those people's lifestyle choices. It's called a network effect, and there's some other thing associated with it. But this is not just like some woo-woo BS. There's science that shows that this is, and this happens with eating. It happens with smoking, I think was the other thing they tested, and financial stuff as well.
Like you're going to make the same amount.
It's not,
like if they're...
it's not earning. I think it's how you spend the money. So like even if you're a well-compensated investment banker, if your friend's friend or your friend's friend's friend is like some dude who spends all of his money on cocaine and works at a bowling alley, you're going to have financial network effects because of that, which is incredibly disappointing.
That is disappointing. So how do you know before you make a friend? You got to scout out their friends and be like, I mean, I guess you just sort of get it.
I think what it is you just have to really hone yourself to be able to go, hey, I don't like the influence that this person is having on me, even if you previously would have thought, this person doesn't have an influence on me. Like, oh, I'm not being influenced by Jamie. I only see her occasionally. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm probably getting this negative influence from somewhere. And I noticed that, and the good news is this is true the other way around as well. So if all of your friends are fit and you're like, hey, let's go out to dinner. And they're like, great, I'm ovo, lacto, vegan, paleo, gluten-free. You're like, ugh, right? But then you start eating Southwest chicken salads all day, and then you're like, oh, these are pretty good, because since they're all into that, you're not eating like cardboard. They know where to get the good stuff, and you're like, oh, this is good. I feel good doing this. Hey, maybe I won't order a soda because I would be the only person ordering a soda, and everyone else here is jacked and fit. You'll get rid of those habits and you'll build these habits. And we see positive influence. Sure. It's just that when it comes to negative influence, we often think that we're immune, and we are not.
We are not. We don't even see these little negative influences. And then they can like kind of wreak havoc on our confidence and who we are. And it's really brave to look around and kind of shed those friends at people that aren't serving you anymore.
It is.
The weeding process.
It is. Cutting people out of your life sucks. And it happens with dating.
It does happen with dating. Well, also, I think that people are so how do I find my person? Or how do it's like when we say advice like go out and do things that you love doing, hang out with people that you actually enjoy, even if it is a networking or a business thing or a hobby, at least you're starting somewhere with something that you're actually enjoying rather than just going to a sports bar to pick up guys if that's what you're into, or I'm going to hang out at the mall. Like all those silly things. You don't want to meet, you want to be doing the things that you actually
agree.
Into.
Oh, that's such good advice. I wish I had known that, right? So when people ask me for this, how do I, if they move to a new town and they're like, how do I build a social circle? One of the main things I always say is make a list of maybe like 5 things you've always wanted to learn. And I don't care what it is. Like, oh, I want to learn how to dance salsa and cook Italian food and go skydiving. And then maybe I'll take like golf lessons. Write those things down. Find classes in your area or clubs in your area that do that, and do those. And it's not just like join a club. Like that's lame advice, because but if you take classes, the worst thing that happens at the end of the class, even if you don't meet any people of the same sex or the opposite sex, is you just learned a skill. So you start to make yourself better as a person, and so you're not wasting the time.
Exactly.
So you take an interior design class and you're like, oh, I didn't really meet anybody here that I like. Okay, but now you have this new skill.
Yeah, now you can decorate your home
or
whatever. No, you're absolutely right. Okay, but let's talk about confidence. Okay.
Okay.
So like a lot of the people that you speak to on your show or just in life, like how do you explain that?
Sure. So
What's your best tips for that?
one of the things that I do is I teach people I call this the doorway drill. And essentially, well, a lot of people think that their first impression is made when they open their mouth. And I'm sure you get this all the time, like, oh, how do I start a conversation? Yeah. What do I say? What do I do? And the truth is, none of that matters at all because, and you know this as a woman, your first impression, especially as a guy, is made when you're a blip on their radar. So guys are like, oh, I need to like sit over here, have like 4 drinks, and then figure out some clever thing to say. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with your friends and you're like, these guys are total weirdos. They're sitting over there getting super hammered.
Yeah, staring at us.
They're staring at us. Inevitably, one's going to like send like the brave guy over here and he's going to be like, hey, girls, what's up? And you're going to be like, ugh.
Right, exactly.
And then so he goes up
Feel
and,
that.
right?
Yeah.
So he goes up and does that and is like, oh man, I guess my cool, clever line didn't work because they were not responsive to that. Because the first impression was made 25 minutes ago when they walked in and ordered like 6 rum and cokes and a Jaeger bomb for themselves.
So Michigan.
Right, it is. It so is.
Yeah.
So the doorway drill is knowing that your first impression is made when when you become a blip on somebody else's radar, when they first notice you. It's all nonverbal communication. And if you don't believe that your first impression is made nonverbally, then go walk down the street, go to the mall, and just listen to the voice in your head, that like judgy thing that keeps you safe, where you're like tall, attractive, skinny, tattoos, fat. Like your brain does that. Even if you're quote unquote not judgmental, your brain is doing that because that's what your brain does all the time. It evaluates things really quickly. So now that you've proven to yourself that the first impression is made non-verbally, that means that when you walk in the door, that's your first impression that you're making on pretty much everybody that sees you. So what I do and what I tell people to do if they come to me for stuff like this is every time you walk through a doorway, like straighten up your body language, chin up, chest up, smile on your face, shoulders back. You don't have to exaggerate it, like you'll look weird.
Right.
But just do that every time you walk through a doorway. And of course, now the problem is you're going to walk through a doorway right after hearing this and be like, oh, I forgot to do that thing. So take these Post-it notes, the little ones that are useless. They only put like 2 letters fit on them.
Right.
Take those, stick them up at
They're in my garage.
They're in your garage, next to the purple
toys,
dildos.
They are. I've got lots of those.
So stick those up at eye level in doors that you go through, like in your office, the restroom, your bedroom, your house, whatever. Stick it up at eye level. You don't have to write anything on it. Because then when you walk through the doorway, you'll be like, why is there a green Post-it note at eye level on the side of the door? Oh, right. I'm supposed to straighten up and reset my body language. And so you create this habit every time you walk through the door after you see these Post-it notes. And so that upright, open, positive, confident body language becomes your default posture and your default nonverbal communication. And so what this does is then I know everyone's
sitting up straight.
Everyone's sitting up straight. What this does is then next time you walk into a room, you don't have to be like, oh, I better straighten up and stand up straight and da-da-da. Because if you try to control your nonverbal first impression without making it a habit, now we're having a conversation and I'm like, oh, wait, was I slouching? Oh, wait, sit up straight. And then I'm like, crap,
right,
I haven't been listening to what she said. Oh, shoot, I haven't been listening. Shoot, wait, sit up straight again. You can't manually control it in the moment. It doesn't work. So you have to relegate it to the level of habit. And then
love it.
What happens is people see you as upright, open, positive, confident in the nonverbal sense. They start to treat you differently because you look more confident, you look more positive and approachable. And then when they treat you different, one of the main ways we know how to behave among other people as social animals is the way that we're treated. And there are these improv games that are like status based where you ever done the one where you hold a number up to your head?
Yeah, I've done improv, yeah.
Yeah. So that people treat you a certain way and you start to act as if, because it's just the way that we're programmed as animals. So if you create that upright, open, positive, confident body language when you walk into rooms, people treat you that way, your status goes up. Therefore, your confidence goes up. Therefore, your status goes up again. And then you don't have to worry about like, hey, ladies, what's going on? I've had 7 Jaeger bombs. You can just be like, hey, I've never been here before. What is this?
Exactly.
Like, do you guys...
It's just like reinforcing it.
Right.
And it becomes who you are, which
right.
I love. So when you were saying the thing about listening, like if you're constantly focusing on your body language and what someone think of you, you're not going to be a great listener. And I think one of your great skills is that you're a great interviewer and a great listener. Is that something that you've had to cultivate over time?
Oh my God,
That's
yeah.
important for everything. I mean, I always tell people on dates and too, like, freaking listen. We all want to be listened to.
This is probably one of those apocryphal things that never happened, but it was like some prime minister of Britain a million years ago. This woman had said, when I went out with him, I thought that he was the most interesting person in all of Britain. And then when I went out with this other person, I thought I was the most interesting person in all of Britain. And so what she meant by that was, it's great if you're really interesting. It's great if you're really charismatic. It's great if you're really cool and have a high social value, high social status. It's even better if that person feels good around you because they feel like, wow, this person's really interested in me. And I think it's a Dale Carnegie thing. In order to be interesting, be interested in other people.
Absolutely. People love talking about themselves.
Yeah. So just let them do it. And that's like the Jordan Harbinger show. Half of it is lead them into this area where that's really interesting and then just like get the hell out of the way and like shut the hell up and let them talk. And most interviewers will not do that, including me 5 years ago. The reason I got over that was because my show's fans are really loyal and really nice. And they're the kind of people that go, Jordan, love the show. You totally need to shut the hell up when people are telling really interesting stories. And if you get enough of those and you put your ego aside and you realize your fans are telling you this because they want you to be better, then you kind of start doing it. And then you get feedback that's positively reinforcing. Like, what I like about your show is you pick these really interesting people, you ask these really good questions, and then you don't freaking interrupt them every 5 minutes. And a lot of interviewers, all they do is interrupt and interject and then make like a dumb joke and then step on the story.
Yeah.
So I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, I've had to learn that too. In fact, I'm still learning that. I feel like we got an
me
email
too.
recently. Someone's like, she's interrupting the guest. I'm like, do I still do that? I thought I gave that up years ago. But you're right. That is a total skill that is something that we're all working on. And in life, it's important. If you feel like you've talked more than you listen, something to learn there.
Yeah, I'm an only child, so no surprise. Now it all makes sense, right? So I had to do a lot of talking because my mom likes to read and my dad likes watching sports on TV. So as an only child, I'm like, is this thing on? Like, is my life on? Am I important to anyone right now? Like, that's the majority of my life.
Jordan.
Yeah. So
Right.
I think
Look at me. Talk to me. Right.
totally. I think part of the reason I like having a microphone in front of me is because I'm like, people have to listen now, right? Like,
exactly.
finally, so I get attention that I've craved so long. But I don't really care about that in other formats. But I really do think that it's so important. It was so important to me as a kid to like always be talking to get attention that it was a really tough lesson for me to learn to like shut up and let other people have some spotlight.
It's a very good skill. In your work and talking to all these high achievers or successful people, there is a lot lately about, and I feel this happens with sex and relationships. I do believe that we are a highly anxious and stressed out society. Now, I don't know if we're more so now because of technology, because of phones and all the distractions. But what about stress and anxiety and dealing with that in a way that, what are your top tips for that you've seen or maybe that you've learned talking to people?
You know, I deal with a lot of doctors and like health biohacky type people as well. One of the things I found is that all this stuff, like you need to work out, all that stuff, that is so valid. But most people will eat tons of crap, and most people don't get enough vitamin D and sun. And even in California, people are inside a lot, and we look at a lot of blue light, and all that stuff triggers anxiety like crazy. Blue light is stuff from screens.
Yeah.
And so that
wear like the glasses.
Super. I have those. Do you have those blue blockers?
No, I bought a pair. They're probably in the garage, but I didn't use them.
Next to the orange dildos. Yeah, every night.
Every night before when you're just home working?
Yeah. And I will tell you, if you wear them from like 7 p.m., 9:30, you're like, I'm so tired, I'm going to sleep. Because it shuts you down.
Even if you are still working then?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. So that's your stress thing. And then what about like being in relationships? How's your relationship?
Oh, my relationship's pretty good.
You guys have been together a while now.
Been together for 6 years, married.
Working together?
Totally working together all the time.
How do you do that?
You know, everybody said don't work with your girlfriend, it's now wife. They're like, it's going to be a mess. I think that some people can and some people can't. And I think people think that they want to work together with their girlfriend or their wife because they kind of have to, or because it'll be cheaper, or because they want to spend every waking moment together because they're still in the honeymoon phase. But if the other person is not willing to sort of bend and do it, then you're in trouble for sure. And a lot of these people who create these awesome businesses together, one person is secretly miserable.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. Not always.
You're not so who's secretly miserable in your relationship?
Jen is not secretly miserable, but she's definitely like, she's like, this is your dream. This is not my dream.
Well, see, that's really hard to get the buy-in from people if it's not really their dream.
Well, yeah, agree. I mean, she's doing it because she's great. She's super supportive, and it's better than being like an accountant but she's not like, this is my dream. I want to hold the camera while you interview someone.
Right.
You know, that's not her thing.
That's true. I got it. Okay.
But I think that if she had a dream, it would be like, she would be like a farmer. She would have like a llama farm.
Really? That could still happen. You never know.
It will happen.
What is the dream for this year for your show, for your life? Like, what's the next thing? Like, you've already top 100 podcast.
Yeah.
And all these people have
Mic
been
drop.
on the show. What?
Mic drop. Yeah.
No, I was so proud. And I really,
appreciate
in a way,
that.
like my heart, I was like, Jordan.
Yeah.
Doing it. It's amazing. Well, you seem really well, and I'm so proud of you and all of your success.
Thank you.
So everyone can check it out. They can check out where you're going to be visiting their cities. You can have to check out their podcast, his podcast.
Yeah. The
Jordan Harbinger Show.
Yeah. Or Harbinger Show. Whatever makes it easier for you to spell. It's that.
Okay, I've got my 5 quickie questions for you.
Let's do it.
We ask everyone. Ready? What's your biggest turn on?
Oh, somebody who is, oh God, damn it. I'm not really quick right now. Intelligence, but there's got to be other stuff, right? I can't be like an ugly person who's just really smart.
It could be.
But like mean to waiters. No.
Okay, got it. Biggest turn off.
Mean to waiters.
True, right?
It's one of my biggest things, yeah. And not just servers, just mean to like flight attendants.
Like if they're mean, that is a sign, not to cut off the quickies, but like literally if somebody is mean on your first date. My mom always says the issues you have in the third date you have forever. People show you who they are, believe them.
For sure. And you know,
triggered in your stomach and you feel it, like don't go on the other date.
This is one of those things, I know it's quickie, I'll be done in a sec.
No, we're good.
There's these things that people do that they think are like, they're like, oh, this is just something that I do. And it's like, as an adult, it's not cool anymore. And one of those things is, oh, I'm just an asshole. It's like who I am, bro. No, you're immature. You want attention. It's not cool anymore. It was cool in middle school. You were like a rebel guy, or like the woman whose profile is like, I'm a bitch, deal with it. It's like, no, you're immature and you're a bad person.
Right.
I'm not dealing with that. You deal with that.
So true. You grow up and you've grown up so much, Jordan. Since I've known you.
Thank God.
You've really matured a lot.
Thank you.
I mean, I hope I have
so.
too, but I mean,
I don't know if you have. Yeah, you were already mature back then.
No, but you really, like, I mean, I'm just so impressed because, I mean, I guess we met like 12 years ago. You were doing other kind of shows, different topics. And
yeah.
And I'm really just a man of integrity.
Thank you.
And talent.
Thank you.
Okay, so something random that turned you on.
Oh, something random that turns me on. I feel like I just had this the other day.
Ooh.
It was... You know what? My wife is really capable. I think capable is a turn on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's
change a tire, do your website.
She's one of those people who's like, I actually just negotiated this, and then I got this other free thing, and then I set this thing up, and then now I'm going to go build something. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
You, so she doesn't have to work with you anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. If we ever run into problems, she's going to go work somewhere else.
Perfect date night.
Oh God, this is so sad. Sitting on my butt with my cat and my wife and like watching something and talking about it, or listening to a really good podcast and talking about it.
What's your other favorite podcast besides mine?
Good. Besides yours? Yeah. My wife finds these true crime ones that I normally don't like.
They're great. They totally suck you in when I have time for them.
Have you heard Dirty John?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's a TV show.
It's creepy though, this guy.
No. Yeah.
She loves Dirty John?
We all love Dirty John. Okay, what's your number one, you can pick this, sex dating relationship tip?
Sex dating relationship tip?
One.
Just be honest about the thing that you think is going to hurt the other person's feelings, because one, it's going to come out later. They're going to be super pissed. You're already going to have this investment in them. Two, if you mention it early on and you're kind enough about it, they're probably going to respect it. Like if someone's late and then they're late again and you're like, hey, if you're going to be always late, it's going to drive me crazy. Is that a thing that we can work on? And they're like, you know what? I hate that about myself. Problem kind of starting to become solved. If you wait until you're 6 months in and you're like, you know what? You're always late. F you. You're a terrible person. You don't care about anyone else but yourself. Then they're like, whoa. Where did that come from? And then they're defensive about it. And now you can't solve the problem. Because if they're on time, they're like, I'm not doing it for you, okay? Because now you've got to fight.
I've had to learn these kind of things because I am a people pleaser. I don't want people not to like me. And I learn all the stuff you say on the show. You eventually start to take your own advice.
Yeah.
But yeah, people appreciate it. Hey, day by day. Thank you so much, Jordan, for being on the show. And everyone check out his podcast. That's it for today's episode. See you on Tuesday. Thanks for listening to Sex with Emily. Be sure to like, subscribe, and give us a review wherever you listen to the podcast, and share this with a friend or partner. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sex with Emily. Oh, I've been told I give really good email. So sign up at sexwithemily.com. And while you're there, check out my free guides and articles for more ways to prioritize your pleasure. If you'd like to ask me about your sex life, dating, or relationships, call my hotline, 559-TALK-SEX. That's 559-825-5739. Or go to sexwithemily.com/askemily. Special thanks to Acast for powering the Sex with Emily podcast. Was it good for you? Email me, feedback@sexwithemily.com.